Hello and welcome to another modded KTANE tutorial. Today we're looking at Heraldry. This module can be quite intimidating at first because we have 48 pages and on each page is a crest. In order to solve the module, we have to find the correct crest. So before I go through how to find the correct crest, I'm going to go through some definitions. Division of field. So this is essentially the sort of shape that the division, excluding these objects on the crest, make. So for example, this crest here would be a bend division, and this crest here would be a quarterly division. Tinctures. There are two main types of tinctures: metals and colors. Tinctures are essentially the color that each object on the crest and each field has. Metals for this module are just ore and argent. Colors are everything else. There are three special colors: sanguine, murrey, and KTANE, and these are referred to as stains, and I'll go through what's special about them later on. Charges. There are three types of charges: animals, crosses, and others. Charges are essentially these objects that you see on the crest that are not related to the field division. I will refer to these objects as charges from now on. Family name. Below each crest is a name, and these can be more than one word. For example here. And I think that's fairly self-explanatory. So firstly, what we have to do is identify the crest of the royal house. So this is the only crest that has a charge representing a lion colored with an ore tincture. So if we go to the appendix, what that means is we're looking for a lion which is colored in ore. So we're looking for a golden lion essentially. So if we go through, let's try find a golden lion. Oh, there we are. It's pretty early. So now that we've found the royal crest, we must do a calculation. So let's look at division of field. +2 for each field division. So these will be essentially each piece of the crest. So in this case we have 3 parts of this crest. So we have 6. -1 if there's party in the name. So we'd have to go to division of field and see what its name is. It's a bend. It does not have party in its name. For example, these crests here all have party in their name. +3 if it's symmetric about the vertical axis. So if we drew a line, it is not symmetric. One thing to note though is this crest here, quarterly, is not symmetric, and that's because the shading does matter. So we have 6 for field divisions. Tinctures. +2 if it has goals, azure, or vert. So what that would mean is we're looking for goals, azure, or vert. Does it have any of these colors? These can be colors on the field or on the charges. That is no, we don't have any red, blue, or green here. So we won't add 2. -1 if it has purple, sable, or blue celeste. So if it has purple, sable or blue celeste on the charges or the fields, we will -1. It has blue celeste and sable, but we're only gonna subtract 1 once. Right? +5 if it has any stain. So stains, as what I said earlier, refer to sanguine, murrey, and tene. Do we have any of these colors on here? On the fields or the charges? No. So we would ignore that. Charges. So we have essentially -1 for our tincture. So we have 5 so far. +1 for each animal. So animals again refers to these sorts of charges that you can find on the crest. And we can see we've got 3 lines. So +3 for that. +1 for each cross. We don't have any crosses. And -1 for each other charge. So we only have 3 lines and nothing else. So far we've got 8 as our score. +1 for each letter in the name. So we have 5 letters in his name. So add 5. And subtract 1 for each word in the name. Our royal crest has 1 word in its name. So, yeah. And then +4 for each letter in the serial number that is in the name. So looking at our serial number, it's X30AHO, 0 rather. Do we have any X's in this name? No, we do not. Do we have any A's? No, we don't. And do we have any H's? No. So we won't add anything for that. So our overall score is 12. So what do we do with this 12? So after we've found the royal crest score, we're going to identify the correct grid. If it's not between 1 and 16, we'll add or subtract 16. One other thing to note is that heraldry is solve dependent. So while our correct grid here would be 12, which is this one here, depending on the solve count, this grid would rotate. So for this case we're on 0 solve, so we don't need to do any rotation. But if you're on a bigger ball, any multiple of 4 would leave you back to this this regular grid, which is generally when heraldry would be done for. So what do we do with this grid? So this grid corresponds to our validity table here. So each of these black parts would represent attributes that are valid for our crest. So if we select all these valid crests, these valid attributes here. So we have this, looks like that. So let's just check it looks about right. Yep, it looks good. So now that we have this validity table, each of these squares relate to either a division, an animal, cross, tincture, or other, which is valid. So if we look at this, we have A2, T1, so animal, a tincture. We have A8, D5, C7, so animal serpent, division here, and a cross, C10, D10, so this cross is valid, this division is valid, D15, D16, these two divisions are valid, tincture 6, S1, so S would be our other here, and T6, and finally S15. What you'll find is I've kind of gone in not an optimal order, it's really a top to bottom, but what you'll find is that your divisions will always be your central spot here, and you always have 4 divisions that are valid. Your tinctures, you can see I saw these these corners here, and you'll always have 2 tinctures that are valid. Animals, crosses, and others, or we could also say charges, you'll always have 6 valid charges in total. And it's not necessarily a 2-2-2 split like what we have here. Okay, so let's go highlight in our appendix what these valid ones are. So we have party per pale, fierce pale chevron. Fierce pale chevron. Our valid tinctures are golds and blue celeste. Golds, blue celeste. Valid animals are eagle and serpent. Eagle, serpent. Valid crosses are potin and fauché. Potin, fauché. Valid other charges are roundlet, roundel, and leaf. Roundel, leaf. Alright, so now we're set, but not quite. There's a couple other rules we have to account for. So, in terms of tinctures that are valid, metals are always considered valid. So, in addition to golds and blue celeste, we're also interested in ore or argent tinctures. We are also stains, which are colors, are also valid. So sanguine, murray, and tene are also valid and what we're interested in. There's another rule. Metals must never be placed on metals. So what that means is we cannot have a charge, some sort of charge that is colored in ore or argent placed on a field which is ore or argent. Colors also must never be placed on colors. So similarly, that means a color, so everything that is not a metal, which so a colored charge cannot be placed on a field which is also a color. So what that means is we only consider charges which are, if they're colored, they're placed on a metal field, and if they're colored in ore or argent, then they're placed on a field which is a color. And one last thing is our unicorn for the heraldry. If we have 2 batteries in one holder, a lit FRK, no serial or parallel, we actually don't need to do any calculation, but instead we need to find the crest which has a unicorn on it. A unicorn is an animal charge and it can be any color. Alrighty, now that we have all the valid properties, let's go ahead and find our valid crest. The way I do it is I usually look at colors first that are not valid and ignore them if I see them. So what I mean by that is if I see an azure, vert, purple, or sable color on a charge or a field, then I will ignore the crest. So I got vert, purple, vert here, purple here, purple here. Now this one's interesting. The color is valid. If we think of, we have a colored charge on a metal field, so that's alright, does not break the rule of tincture. So then let's look at whether this is a valid division. It is in fact, it's a pale. And let's look at whether this is a valid charge, and it is in fact, it is a roundel. So we got quite lucky here. That's fairly early. So this crest here, for a multiple of 4 souls, would be the valid crest. So I'm going to select it. We get a fanfare playing, and we're happy. Let's look at another one. Now we have to keep in mind though that we have 1 soul. So after we find the score and the correct grid, for example, is 3, we actually have to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. So let's go ahead and find the crest with a golden line. So an ore lion. I'm going to go a little bit faster for this case. So here we have it. This crest is it's got a golden lion. It also has another animal. That's fine. Pause the video here if you would like to calculate the score of the crest. I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see the name a little bit better. Okay. So, firstly, field divisions. We have 2 field divisions, so it'll be 4. Does it have party in the name? Party per bend? Yes, it does. So subtract 1. 1, 3. Is it symmetric about the vertical axis? No. Does it have goals, zero, or vert? I'm going to tell you now that this green is vert, so I'm going to add 2. Does it purple, sable, or blue celeste? This black I'm going to tell you is sable, so I'm going to subtract 1. Does it have any stain? I can identify that it has no stains. Plus 1 for each animal, so these are 2 animals. 1 for each cross. We don't have any crosses. We don't even have any others. Looking at the name, we have 2, 5, 6, 8 letters in our name. And our name has 1 word, so we'll subtract 1. Do we have any X's? No. Do we have an A? We do, so add 4 for that. Do we have any H's? No. So our final score is 17. So again, we want it to be between 1 and 16. So we're going to subtract 16. So our final score is 1. Pause the video here to get, so you can try and get the valid properties. Keep in mind that we do have to do a rotation. Alrighty. So I'm looking at 1 and I want to rotate it 90 degrees. So, let's see, that looks like this. So, that's there. This is rotated, so it's down. Let me see, am I happy with that rotation? Yep. So, what we have is valid is quarterly, bend, cross and chief. Valid animals, horse and stag. In this case we have 3 special valid. So 3, 12 and 16. Mullets, keys and hand. We have 1 cross which is valid. It's Greek. So in total we have 6 valid charges. 2 and 4 is tinctures. So 0 and purpur. So 4 valid divisions, 2 valid tinctures, and 6 valid charges. So let's go and highlight a 0 purpur. So we're happy with those, and again we're happy with metals and any stains. Divisions, quarterly, bend, cross, chief. Quarterly, bend, cross chief. Animals horse stag. Crosses Greek. And others mullets, keys, and hand. So now we have everything that is valid. Let's go start. And my method again is if I see a goals, vert, blue celeste, or sable, I'm going to ignore it. So blue celeste, goals, I have goals here. There's and vert here, goals here, blue celeste here. Oops. Vert here. I have a sable there, sable here, vert here, goals, vert, goals, sable, goals, sable. Right. Oh, I didn't actually go from the start, did I? Goals here, sable here. Okay, this is an interesting one. Let's check out. We have colors on colors. No, we don't. We have a colored charge, but it's not on a colored field, so that's fine. Purple is fine. A 0 is fine. Let's look at the division. The division is Ben, so this is fine. Animals. It is a stag. We zoom closer. We can indeed see that's a stag, but stag is a fairly unique animal anyway. So in fact, we've already found the correct crest, and which is this. And keep in mind that that was the correct crest for one solve. There are always 4 valid crests, one for each modulo of 4n solves. So there would be one for 0, 1, 2, 3, and every other multiple of 4 adding on to those numbers. So how would you do this in Twitch Plays? So the way I do it in Twitch Plays is I do a zoom cycle and I take a clip. For example, what I've got here is, just mute this sound for a bit. So I'm taking a zoom cycle, and what you'll find is if at the end you press the clip button with a shortcut is Alt plus X, you'll find that it's about 30 seconds long and you'll capture every single page. So what I do in this is I'm fairly fast at identifying what is the correct crest. So in this case, we'll go through. That is not a golden lion. It's a golden wolf. It looks like it. Oh, there we go. So we have golden line here. And I would look at this and calculate my score from that. And then go back to the start and then go through, similar to what I've done, and just do a play and pause, and sort of go through like that. And this is a clip of me solving it. Play. Thank you for watching this tutorial on Heraldry. I hope you keep talking and don't explode.